Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the commander of the 2nd Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, Colonel Jeffery D. Broadwater, and the Brigade Command Sergeant Major, Sergeant Major Shane K. Key, welcome to 2nd Brigade Combined Change of Command and Change of Responsibility Ceremony. I am Major Kevin Bukowski, and I will be your narrator for today's ceremony. Today's ceremony, steeped in military tradition, serves the dual function of rendering honors to the departing commander and Command Sergeant Major, and providing official recognition for the transfer of authority and responsibility for the soldiers, equipment, and mission of the 2nd Brigade to the new commander and new Command Sergeant Major. The official change of command and change of responsibility is accomplished with the transfer of the unit colors, which are a symbol of the combat readiness and esprit de corps of the unit. The senior reviewing officer for today's ceremony is the Commanding General, 1st Infantry Division, and Fort Riley, Major General Paul E. Funk II. The host and commander of troops for today's ceremony is the commander of the 2nd Brigade, Colonel Jeffery D. Broadwater. The units on the field in front of you participating in today's ceremony are, from left to right, the 1st Infantry Division Band, led by Chief Warrant Officer 3, Jeffrey Price. The 5th Squadron, 4th United States Cavalry Regiment, Long Knives, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Brad Duplessis. The rear detachment of the 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment, Vanguards, commanded by Major Brett Hamilton. The 1st Battalion, 63rd Armor Regiment, Dragons, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Murtha. The 2nd Brigade Keller Guard, led by Sergeant Major Shane Akey. The 1st Battalion, 7th Field Artillery Regiment, 1st Lightning, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel James Collins. 2-1 Brigade Special Troops Battalion, Griffins, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel James Tenpenny. And the 299th Brigade Support Battalion, Lifeline, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel C.J. King. The horses and riders to your right are from the Commanding General's Mounted Keller Guard. We would like to recognize the following individuals for attending today's ceremony. The representative from Kansas, the Honorable Tim Hulskamp. The parents of the incoming commander, General and Mrs. Thurman. Civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army, Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery. The commander of the 1st Infantry Division and his wife, General and Dr. Funk. Mrs. Grinston. Mr. Howe. Deputy Commanding Generals for the 1st Infantry Division, General and Mrs. Swindell, Brigadier and Mrs. Geeka, General Muth, and finally, General Zeller. And we would also like to recognize our distinguished troopers in attendance today, Mr. Montgomery, Command Sergeant Major Young, Mrs. Paquette, and Mr. Jankovic. Please feel free to come forward and take photographs, except during the playing of the national anthem. Please direct your attention to your right front, where you will see Trooper Dees riding Chico and Trooper Jordan riding Lexington approaching the reviewing stand. At this time, Mrs. Elisa Broadwater, the wife of the outgoing commander of 2nd Brigade, is being presented red roses from Sergeant Stevenson. Also receiving red roses is Meredith, his daughter. Receiving brigade coins are his sons, Davis and Jeremy. Mrs. Stacy Akey, the wife of the outgoing Sergeant Major of 2nd Brigade, is being presented red roses by Specialist Smith. Also receiving red roses is the Sergeant Major's daughter Zoe, and receiving brigade coin is his son Cyrus. The roses are in full bloom, which symbolizes our love and respect for their devotion and loyal support of the soldiers and families of 2nd Brigade for the last 2 years. At this time, Mrs. Jamie Brown, the wife of the incoming commander of 2nd Brigade, is being presented yellow roses by Sergeant Polson. Also receiving yellow roses is his daughter Abigail. Receiving a brigade coin is his son Andrew. Mrs. Candace Jackson, the wife of the incoming Command Sergeant Major of the 2nd Brigade, is being presented yellow roses by Specialist McKnight. Also receiving yellow roses are their daughters Brianna and Kennedy. And receiving a brigade coin is their son Roman. Yellow is the color of joy and friendship and symbolizes the relationship between the brigade soldiers and the family readiness group. Shortly, the rosebuds will blossom, as will the relationship with the soldiers and families as they grow into a cohesive team. Now at this time, as a gesture of appreciation, Mrs. Elisa Broadwater is presenting a basket of carrots to the fine horses of the Commanding General's Mounted Color Guard on behalf of all of the Dagger Brigade's wives. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the invocation given by the chaplain of 2nd Brigade, Major Lawrence Daybeck.
I'm Larry Daybeck, and I'm a Big Red 1 chaplain. Feel free to join me as I pray. Almighty God, the commander of heaven's armies, I'm grateful to you for the professional leadership of Sergeant Major Shane Akey and how he has stepped up to lead within our brigade. Please bless him, Stacy, Zoe, and Cyrus as they follow you from here. And Lord, we are indebted to the selfless service of Colonel Jeff Broadwater. We thank you for his outstanding leadership through NTC and across the continent of Africa. He's a competent and caring man, and we have you to thank for that. I ask that you care for him, for Elisa, Davis, Jeremy, and Meredith, that together as a family, they follow your call on their lives. And now we commit Command Sergeant Major Maurice Jackson and Colonel Miles Brown to you, O Lord. May they trust you, care for their families, and lead our soldiers well. Bless and keep their families for all that lies ahead. May they daily find that you are ready now to be all that they need. In your amazing name I pray, amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to your right front, where you observe members of the 1st Battalion, 7th Field Artillery, led by Lieutenant Martin and Sergeant Guillermo, as they prepare and fire Old Glory, a replica of an 1855 Model 3-inch ordnance cannon. The firing of the cannon will signal the start of the ceremony. Throughout American military history, music has been constantly present on the battlefield. Military musicians have served in every conflict, using music to maintain morale and instill the will to fight and win. The tradition of the sound-off dates back to the Crusades, when detachments were deployed on distant campaigns. It was customary to form the garrison with the departing troops in a place of honor on the far right of the formation. The band would then march past the deploying troops playing music. The 1st Infantry Division Band was constituted 12 October 1943 in the regular Army as part of Headquarters and Headquarters Company Band, 1st Infantry Division. Since its activation, it has spent most of its existence here at Fort Riley, Kansas, with deployments during World War II, Vietnam conflict, Operations Desert Shield, and Desert Storm. One notable and nationally publicized incident in the history of the 1st Infantry Division Band was Thunder Road in Vietnam. Thunder Road, Highway 13, was critical to the division as a main supply route. It was under control of enemy forces, whose headquarters was less than a mile away. Major General John Hay, commanding general of the 1st Infantry Division, ordered his band to march down Thunder Road, which was notoriously known for ambushes on American convoys and personnel. The band marched for 1 mile while playing the march Colonel Bogey. The enemy, intimidated by the action, withdrew from the area. The 1st Infantry Division Band fulfilled a remarkable combat mission without firing a shot. Over the last decade, the band has served with distinction while forward deployed in Germany while promoting German-American relations, as well as bettering diplomacy with many of the United States allies all over Europe. Also, it had served valiantly in places of turmoil such as Hungary, Macedonia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Operation Iraqi Freedom II. Most recently, the band deployed Operation Iraqi Freedom 11 and Operation New Dawn. The 1st Infantry Division Band deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom 13. Ladies and gentlemen, 1st Infantry Division Band. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. Major General Funk has deferred honors to Colonel Broadwater and the soldiers and family members of the Dagger Brigade. Roger up. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the official party will now take the field for the inspection of troops. This form of inspection dates back to the time of Alexander the Great and provides commanders the opportunity to see their troops and assess their fitness. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2nd Dagger Brigade was constituted on 24 May 1917 as headquarters, 2nd Infantry Brigade of the 1st Expeditionary Division. It was later redesignated as the 1st Division. During World War I, the brigade distinguished itself with participation in the Montée d'Essai and Noyon, Aisne, Marne, Meuse-Argonne, Lorraine, and Picardy campaigns. Following World War I, the brigade redesignated as Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 2nd Infantry Brigade. It was relieved of assignment to the 1st Infantry Division on 11 October 1939 and inactivated on 1 June 1940. Reactivated in 1942 in response to World War II, 2nd Brigade units participated in Operation Torch, the landings in North Africa, and then in the Normandy campaign throughout the summer of 1944. They participated in subsequent operations across France and Germany until the end of the war, when Dagger Brigade was inactivated in January 1945. In February 1958, the brigade was reactivated, and in July 1965, the Daggers landed in Cam Ranh Bay in Vung Tau in South Vietnam, the first element of the 1st Infantry Division to do so. The brigade returned to Fort Riley in April 1970, where it remained for the duration of the Cold War. The Dagger Brigade again saw action in December 1990 when it deployed to Southwest Asia as part of Operation Desert Shield. During Operation Desert Storm, the brigade earned battle streamers for the defense of Saudi Arabia and the liberation of Kuwait, and directly participated in the breach of Iraqi defenses in the initial stages of coalition forces' attack into Iraq. In February 1996, the brigade was relocated with the rest of 1st Infantry Division to Europe. The Dagger Brigade replaced the 3rd Infantry Division's Raider Brigade in Schweinfurt, Germany. In January 2003, elements of the brigade deployed to Turkey in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom I as part of the Army Force Turkey, to prepare the way for the 4th Infantry Division to enter Iraq from the north. When the operation ended, the 2nd Brigade returned to Germany. In February 2004, the Dagger Brigade deployed to northern Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom II. While in Iraq, the 2nd Brigade averaged 90 patrols a day throughout the brigade sector. Many of these were joint patrols conducted with Iraqi security forces as part of their training to conduct independent operations in the future. Following combat operations, the brigade returned to Germany in January 2005. The Daggers returned to Iraq in October 2006, this time as part of multinational division Baghdad. The brigade distinguished itself throughout its stay, participating in campaigns in and around the Iraqi capital, and was the largest brigade combat team ever formed. The brigade returned to Germany in November 2007, following successful operations during the now famous Surge. For their success during this rotation, the brigade received a meritorious unit citation. In April 2008, the Dagger Brigade deactivated in Schweinfurt and reactivated later that month at Fort Riley, Kansas. In October, the 2nd Brigade found its way to Iraq again as part of multinational division Baghdad. This deployment resulted in irreversible momentum for security improvement in the now familiar streets of northwest Baghdad and its suburbs to the west. While deployed, more than 23,000 families returned to the area, and Iraqi security forces are trained to maintain the security improvements for the future of the local citizens residing in the area. The brigade smoothly transitioned through task organization changes and dozens of boundary changes as MNDB realigned and adjusted its troop strength. The brigade returned to Fort Riley in October 2009, was redesignated as an Advise and Assist Brigade. The brigade deployed back to Iraq in October 2010 to serve in support of Operation New Dawn as the only brigade in the Baghdad province. The Daggers conducted combat advisement and provided training and assistance to their Iraqi security force partners to strengthen their ability to provide for the internal and external security of Iraq. Standing shoulder to shoulder with the two Iraqi area commands, 7 Iraqi Army divisions, and the local and patrol police of the Baghdad Operations Command, the brigade conducted combined operations to defeat violent extremist networks that threatened the future of Iraq, while simultaneously sustaining all U.S. forces in Baghdad province and transitioning bases, equipment, and missions over to the government of Iraq and the United States Mission, Iraq. The brigade concluded its mission and returned to Fort Riley in November 2011 to begin training for the next engagement. In 2013, the Dagger Brigade was called upon to be the first regionally aligned brigade in the Army. As such, the brigade deployed or had influence in over 30 countries on the continent of Africa. These tours included over 161 engagements, which resulted in over 12,500 African soldiers trained. Ladies and gentlemen, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. Ladies and gentlemen, you're now seeing a movement known as Officers in Keller Center March. This activity stems from the early Roman days when the leaders laid down their weapons and shields and came forward to their emperor. By doing so, the leaders signified to the emperor that the officers of their command were loyal to him. In early American cavalry tradition, it was used to give troops special instructions prior to going into battle. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the outgoing brigade commander, along with the incoming brigade commander and command sergeant major, will take the field to conduct the passing of the brigade colors. The colors represent not only the unit, but also the unity and loyalty of its soldiers. They are the commander's symbol of authority, representing his responsibilities to the organization. The passing of the colors from Colonel Broadwater to Colonel Brown is significant in many ways. The transition is symbolic of the transfer of command responsibility to a new leader. In accordance with paragraph 2-5 alpha, Army Regulation 600-20, the undersigned assumed command of the 2nd Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, effective 1100 hours, 05 June 2014. Signed, Colonel Edmund M. Brown, commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, Major General Paul E. Funk II.
I told you it never rains on the 1st Infantry Division, huh? Hey, listen, it's a great day out here, a great Kansas day. We've had a little weather, but I'm sure we'll have snow this afternoon. So, first of all, I just want you to look out on the field, and I want you to give those great troopers a round of applause. And Jeff and I and Miles are going to take a little bit of that applause and say thanks for staying on the horses. So we appreciate that. Let me get serious for a minute. Representative Huelskamp, General and Mrs. Thurman, distinguished troopers, elected officials, the Broadwater family, the Brown family, friends, and Big Red One soldiers. Welcome to our Flint Hills on a beautiful Fort Riley day. My name is Paul Funk, and I am a Big Red One soldier. I am brave, responsible, and always on point for our nation, our division, and you, my fellow soldiers and Army family. Today we celebrate the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team's change of command between Jeff Broadwater and Miles Brown, two extraordinary men who I feel privileged to have served with. Standing before you today are America's sons and daughters, the 21st century warrior diplomats that take America's message with them wherever they go. And these men and women, specifically, have gone to a lot of places. 166 distinct missions in over 30 different countries in Africa in the last year. These men and women, these soldiers and leaders of the famed Dagger Brigade have carried the standard of the United States Army and the spirit of the American people far and wide. Although the outgoing commanders never wholeheartedly agree with me, I love changes of command. Not for the pain of the rehearsals. Believe me, guys, I know you'd rather have something else to do this week. I love changes of command because they remind me of the enduring legacy of the United States Army. For the first commander of this brigade, Robert Bulliard, until now, commanders have come and gone, each making their unique mark on their organization and the Army. But the foundational spirit of the profession of arms has remained steadfast through that unchanging spirit. Each Big Red One soldier has been grafted into the history of our nation's oldest division and Fort Riley. So, to the Dagger soldiers on the field, the band, the Mounted Color Guard, special shout out to Lexington, my horse, and the firing battery. Each of you in this ceremony is connected to the great history of this field, this post, and the soldiers that came before you. From the cavalrymen that helped secure the West to the troopers that formed this nation's 1st Division for World War I. And since your inauguration for World War I on the 24th of May, 1917, the Big Red One soldiers of this brigade have written a long and storied history, one chapter at a time, with the most recent chapter written as the first conventional Army unit to be regionally aligned in Africa. It will not be the last chapter. Jeff, you have been one of the key authors of the most recent chapter, and you are a fantastic leader. Future units rotating to the National Training Center are going to tighten their bootlaces and triple check their bore sights, knowing that you are at the training helm as the commander of operations group. Miles, you and I have followed each other around for the last 10 years of combat. From my FSO at 17 Cav, then again as my fires chief to the 1st Brigade of the 1st Cavalry Division, and then once more as the aide-de-camp of the 3 Corps Commander when I was the Chief of Staff. Miles, you are a proven leader, and I think of no one more ready to lead the Dagger Brigade. Ladies and gentlemen, our tradition of passing the unit's colors symbolizes the transfer of responsibility for the unit, the soldiers, and their families. Colonel Jeffery Broadwater has led this brigade with distinction through new equipment fielding and a return to decisive action training, both here on Fort Riley and at the National Training Center. Upon activation as a regionally aligned force with AFRICOM, Jeff recognized the shortfall in the understanding capabilities and designed Dagger University to train soldiers and leaders on theater-specific tasks. This is just one small example of how Jeff's leadership has paved the way for our Army to embrace the Chief of Staff of the Army's vision of a globally available and regionally engaged Army. Lessons learned by the Dagger Brigade have been solicited across our Army, and other units currently ramping up for similar missions are emulating the Dagger model. Likewise, our partners in Africa have sent back nothing but praise and requests from the U.S. Army because in the end, the Dagger Brigade's professionalism has assured them that this uniform brings hope and a promise that unmatched leadership and expertise will be imparted upon their security forces and their nation's future. Jeff, you and the Dagger soldiers assembled here today have done a fantastic job. Alicia, your volunteer spirit and dynamic service for the families of the Dagger Brigade will not go unrecognized. Both of you will be missed, but I'm confident that Fort Irwin is excited to receive you. 70 years ago, on this very eve, elements of this formation were preparing to storm the shores at Normandy. The renowned battles of yesteryear, the history of this division, and the reputation of the Dagger Brigade will now live on under the skilled and vigilant hand of Colonel Miles Brown. Brave, responsible, and on point, Miles will ensure that the Dagger Brigade remains forever ready, because when all other political means fail, we must succeed. Many have devoted their lives to keeping that promise over the last 239 years. Today, we bear witness to just one symbolic moment in this continuation of devotion and promise. Miles, welcome. You and Jamie are at the start point of an incredible ride. I know the fine Dagger soldiers on this field will make you proud. With that, I want to welcome the Jackson family as well. I can't wait for Sergeant Major Jackson to take over the helm as the Command Sergeant Major. With that, I'll end by telling you once again, my name is Paul Funk, and I am a Big Red 1 soldier. Daggers, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. Victory!
Ladies and gentlemen, the outgoing commander of the 2nd Brigade, Colonel Jeffery D. Broadwater.
Distinguished guests, friends, and family, thank you for being here today. I am an extremely fortunate person for all the wonderful people that I have come to know and work with and all the opportunities that I've had in the last 2 years. So having said that, there are many people that I need to thank. First, I'd like to thank the 1st Infantry Division Band, the CG's Mounted Color Guard, and all the many individuals that made today's event so special, especially their patience as we were working with the weather. General Funk, thank you for your leadership, mentorship, and establishing such a great command climate. You and Dr. Funk truly make Fort Riley a special place, and in 24 years of being in the military, I've never seen a better command atmosphere that you all set with the ADCs and Sergeant Major Grinston and the spouses. Thank you all. Over the past 2 years, I've had the humbling honor of commanding the Dagger Brigade. All the great things that we accomplished in the Dagger Brigade was due to the professional soldiers that are being represented on this field today before you. Through their hard work and determination to make a positive difference every day, one BCT influenced 30 countries and trained over 13,000 African soldiers that are deployed in places like Mali, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Dagger soldiers have been on point for our nation, executing as the first response force in places like South Sudan and Djibouti, protecting U.S. personnel and interest. They've also shared, prepared, and honed their traditional warfighting skills in the event that we were called to serve in other contingency operations. The best way to describe their actions is by quoting Sergeant Johnson from 163 Armor. We train now others, helping them solve their own problems so we don't have to later. Each soldier has shown a high degree of professionalism and acted as a role model, never compromising our faith and confidence. We imparted in them our trust to serve as role models for the BCT, the division, and our nation. Daggers, thank you for all you have done, not only for our nation, but for all the other countries that we have partnered with. There are always plenty of challenges and opportunities when you're the first in anything. I can honestly say through your hard work and dedication, each and every one of you made a difference in shaping our nation's future. You made it work. You made a regional alignment concept work while simultaneously maintaining your global availability for our nation's future readiness. You are truly brave, responsible, and on point for our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please give me the honor to applaud these great soldiers before you one last time. We've had great teammates since we've been here at Fort Riley. The Papples, Bob and Sandy Law, Mike Morgan, the Clarks, Managua's, Reynolds, Lewis's, Coles, and all the wonderful folks on the garrison staff, in particular Linda, who has been keeping me out of trouble since I was a major. To the Dagger families, thank you for all your sacrifices and continued support. You all embraced and gracefully endured the unknown and the many changes in our various missions as we executed our regionally aligned missions. One of the greatest rewards during command was having the pleasure of watching this magnificent team mature. Thank goodness I had outstanding help all along the way with great battalion commanders. Jeff Powell, Lee McGee, Jay Walter, John Mountford, Eric Schwartz, Jim Penny, Brad, Celicia, CJ Tom, and Jim Collins, thank you for your leadership and the teamwork you displayed. Also, thank you to your spouses for all they have done for our soldiers and families. To the Sergeant Majors in the BCT, you've been phenomenal. There's no finer senior assemblage of senior NCOs in the Army. On that note, I also need to say special thanks to Sergeant Major Gilpin and Sergeant Major Akey. Your steadfast leadership has been an example for others to follow. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Schull, you've been a great friend and a tremendous asset for the BCT. I've had the pleasure of working with great field grade officers and watching them grow and develop every day. Chris Dambeck, Chuck Slagle, Dave Diaz, Aaron Kaufman, and Joey Arrington, with all the other field grades in the BCT. Thank you for operating in a joint, interagency, intergovernmental, multinational environment every day. You blaze new ground, taking concepts and operationalizing them into reality. There is no doubt what makes Fort Riley so special is the people. I'd like to thank the community, John Seitz, Dick Young, Rich Jakovich, the Stuckies, Art DeGroat, and our friends at KSU, just to name a few of the great community friends that do so much for Fort Riley and our families. The biggest helper that I have in my family and who I owe the greatest thanks and appreciation to is Elisa, Davis, and Jeremy and Meredith. Thank you for all your sacrifices that you have made. I love you all, and thank God every day that you're part of my life. Lastly, in closing, I'm very thankful for the Daggers will remain in the great hands of Colonel Miles Brown and Sergeant Major Jackson. The Browns and Jackson family will lead the Dagger Brigade to even greater heights that we have reached in our first 97 years of service to our nation. For the Daggers will always be ready now. Thank you.
No sacrifice too great! Duty first! Victory!
Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team, 1st Infantry Division, the Dagger Brigade, Colonel Miles Brown.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Miles Brown, and I am a Big Red One soldier. I am brave, I am responsible, and I am on point for the nation. A special thanks to my bride and my best friend, Jamie, my daughter Abigail, and my son Andrew for their love and support. Thanks to my father-in-law, General James D. Thurman, U.S. Army retired, and my mother-in-law, Miss D. Thurman, for making the trip from Texas. A special thanks to my mentor, Colonel Sam Floka, U.S. Army retired, who served the Big Red One with honor in Vietnam. To Colonel Jeff and Elisa Broadwater, Command Sergeant Major Jackson, I, our spouses, and our families are thankful for your hard work. To Major General and Dr. Beth Funk, thanks for your leadership and your gracious welcome. To the soldiers on the field, you look great. Command Sergeant Major Jackson and I are proud to serve in the Dagger family with you. No mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great. Duty first, ready now, Daggers.
Ladies and gentlemen, this last procedure, and the most traditional part of the entire ceremony, is the pass and review. From earliest times, the pass and review has demonstrated the glory and strength of the assembled troops. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now is the brigade staff, led by the Dagger Brigade Commander, Colonel Miles Brown. The staff consists of the S1, Major John Hermetish, the S2, Major Christopher Reed, the S3, Major David Diaz, the S5, Major David Britton, the S6, Captain Clint Burnett. Infantry Division band, under the direction of Chief Warrant Officer Craig Price. The drum major for today's ceremony is Sergeant First Class Swanson. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now, the proud soldiers of the 5th Squadron, 4th United States Cavalry, led by Lieutenant Colonel Duplessis and Command Sergeant Major Stinko. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now is the rear detachment of the 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment, led by Major Hamilton, 1st Armed Barons.
Eyes right!
Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now are the proud soldiers of the 1st Battalion, 63rd Armored Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel Murtha, Command Sergeant Major Figueroa. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now is the 2nd Brigade Color Guard, led by Command Sergeant Major Jackson. Please stand and render honors to the National Colors. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now are the proud soldiers of the 1st Battalion, 7th Field Artillery Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel Collins, Command Sergeant Major Barajas. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now are the proud soldiers of the 2-1 Brigade Special Troops Battalion, led by Lieutenant Colonel Tenpenny, Command Sergeant Major Alley. Ladies and gentlemen, passing before you now are the proud soldiers of the 299th Brigade Support Battalion, led by Lieutenant Colonel King, Command Sergeant Major Bishop. last unit, which uniquely represents our rich cavalry heritage here at Fort Riley, is the Commanding General's Mounted Color Guard, led by Sergeant Stubbs. Please stand for the playing and singing of the Big Red One song and the Army song. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. A receiving line will be formed to the front of the reviewing stand for those who wish to bid farewell to Colonel Broadwater and Mrs. Broadwater. The reception will follow at the Custer House to welcome Colonel Brown, Mrs. Brown, Command Sergeant Major Jackson, and Mrs. Jackson. Thank you for attending.